This video on the ethics of tarot reading is an excerpt from my course, The Art and Magic of the Tarot Foundations. This course is ideal for those new to tarot, but it's also good for people who have been reading tarot for a while but just want to deepen their practice. You can find information and registration for the course at theartofmagicalliving.com or in the links below. Let's talk about the ethics of tarot reading, which is maybe the most important module in this course. What you say to someone in a tarot reading can affect them for the rest of their lives. So you always have to be conscientious, thoughtful, and kind. And if you want to know why that's so important, here's a horror story. The mother of a good friend of mine went to a tarot reader decades ago. This woman told her that she would die by a certain age. That's right. The reader gave her a chronological date, a year in her life that she would not live past. Since then, this woman has been absolutely terrified, and that birthday is now approaching. She has lived her whole life in fear based on what that absolutely irresponsible and unethical tarot reader said to her. Now, my friend has talked to his mother and told her that there's no reason to fear this, that tarot reader cannot predict her future, and most importantly, cannot predict her death. But she is absolutely terrified. And in some ways, she probably doesn't believe it's true, but there's a part of her that feels this viscerally, that she may actually die at the age that was predicted. If I could find that tarot reader, I would find it hard to contain my anger, honestly. That one stupid, irresponsible prediction has given my friend's mother a lifetime of anxiety. And it only gets worse as she approaches that predicted age. Now, I consider that beyond irresponsible and actually verging on criminal. In some societies, such predictions or curses, and honestly, a prediction like that as a curse, can literally cause someone to sicken and die. And I know that you've been through this course and you would never do anything like that. But I think it's really important to be aware that there are people out there who are incredibly unethical and irresponsible and cause deep damage and harm to people. And it's very likely you will encounter stories like that. So you, as an ambassador to the world for this art that we've spent all these hours learning together, can undo some of that damage by understanding these ethics. And when you hear people with stories like that, you can tell them that that is not going to happen, that they are going to be okay, that that particular tarot reader was deeply unethical, and what they did is dangerous. So our number one goal should always be to help and uplift people. And that's especially important if you are going to do this professionally, if you are going to be a reader and you are going to get paid to do it. Because people that come to you when you're a professional reader, they don't come to you when they're happy, when everything is going perfectly in their lives. They come to you when they have an issue, when they have a problem, when they feel stuck and they need some guidance or advice. Often these people will be very anxious, uncertain, and that's why they reach out to you. Your goal should be to assuage that anxiety, to make them feel better, to make them feel confident that they can move ahead and fix their lives. And you do that not by giving them what you think is the best advice, but helping them to come to their own conclusions. Help them find the strength and insight to make their own informed decisions. And as I've reiterated over and over in previous lessons about doing readings, don't approach the reading as if you are an all-seeing, all-knowing oracle. Let the person you're reading for know that this is a cooperative exercise, that their input helps refine the reading. And the metaphor I've used before, and you probably have heard me say this a lot now, is the reading is a dance. It's a dance between you as the reader and the person you're reading for. You both build this story together, this narrative together. You both find insight and meaning in this connection that you have in this process. And this gets to another important point, that horror story I just told you. Avoid predictive readings. Because in my decades of experience, the most useful readings are those about what is happening now. Now, a reading may point to trends or potential developments in a situation, but always assure the person you're reading for that they are in control of their lives, that they are the ones that can make changes in their lives, that things are not fated for them to happen. I always tell the people I'm reading for, you can choose to walk out the door and go one direction or the other direction, and that changes everything. So although people think of tarot readers as people who predict the future, and sometimes the future does come through in divination, there is unquestionably no doubt about that. I've seen it happen more than once, but the most useful readings, and I really want to stress this, are not about what's going to happen, but what is happening, what is the current situation, and how can the person you're reading for change their lives by acting on this information that is present in the cards, is present in that exchange between the two of you. You don't want to guide them to do something. You don't want to give them advice or set them on a path that you think is right. You want them to see their own path forward. Now, the funny thing is, often you will find that they know the answer. They know the best way forward. The reading provides clarity for something they already know. Should I stay with him or her? A question that you will get so often. And most of the time, the answer is no. And they know it. So what your reading will do is guide them to self-knowledge. It will guide them to what they already know is true. What they already know is the next best step, is the answer to that question that they're coming to you for. Alejandro Jodorowsky, in this incredible book, which I absolutely believe should be on your bookshelf. Jodorowsky's suggestion for tarot readers is that you strive to be a mirror and that you avoid all of your preconceptions, stereotypes, and you check your ego when you're reading for someone. So it's natural that if someone sits down in front of you and they look like one of your exes, that you're going to have certain preconceptions that will color your reading. To look at each person who sits down in front of you with a completely clean slate. And again, you want to serve as a mirror. You want them to see themselves reflected in the cards, reflected in the reading. And in light of that horror story reading that I told you already, it should be obvious that you should never discuss the death of the client that you're reading for. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. We already talked about the various meanings of the death card and that it is not the death of the client. If there's one inviolable rule that I hope you take away from this is please avoid talking about the client's death. Also, never discuss pregnancy or medical conditions. Just don't discuss pregnancy. Because think about it. If someone comes to you and they're pregnant and they say, am I going to have a boy? Am I going to have a girl? Am I going to have a healthy child? What if you get it wrong? What if, God forbid, something terrible happens during their pregnancy and you have told them they're going to have a happy, healthy baby girl? What are they going to do? They're going to come after you. They're going to be really pissed off. And rightfully so. So just avoid the topic. Say, that's not for me. Pregnancy questions are for your doctor, which gives rise to another rule. Don't discuss medical issues. You are not a doctor. If you consider yourself a medical sensitive or intuitionist or something like that, please keep that separate from your tarot readings. That also goes for legal or financial advice. If someone asks you those questions, send them to a professional. Tell them that is not what you do. It can come back and bite you. And I've heard stories of that happening. So when someone has those sorts of questions, send them to a professional. Always, always, always send any client that is having deep psychological issues or mental health problems to a professional. And you should keep a list of those professionals handy. And I'd also like to recommend a book that has been incredibly helpful for me, and that's called On Becoming a Counselor. And I will put a link to that book below. This is a book that is designed for lay people, not professionals, who happen to be in situations where people come to them with their troubles. So like just anyone. And honestly, I believe this book should be read by everybody because we all encounter friends, family members who are having a difficult time. And this book gives you strategies to help them to get through that tough time that they're having, but in a way that is not putting yourself in a professional position. Just get this book. I think you'll thank me for it. And another rule, keep your readings confidential. If someone tells you something in confidence, keep it in confidence. Another thing to keep in mind is don't feel compelled to give answers. We already talked about how you shouldn't be giving advice, but rather allowing the person to come to their own conclusions about how they should proceed. Now, in my decades of reading professionally, sometimes the cards just say to the questioner, you must make a decision. And that's awfully frustrating. I once had a client I was reading for, and she was trying to decide whether she should uproot her life and travel to a different state for a new job, or if she should stay with what she was doing. And she was really torn. She was struggling with this decision, and the cards seemed to mirror her struggle with that decision. What we were seeing in the cards was kind of pluses and minuses of either moving or staying. And there was nothing really clear coming through, nothing that was obviously leading her in one direction or another. And I said, it looks like the cards are saying in this instance that you need to make a decision. You just need to decide. And she said to me, well, that's why I came to you to figure this out. And I said, I'm sorry. I can't make that decision for you. Make up your mind. You just have to make a choice. So don't feel like every reading that you do is going to be explicit or concrete, that they're going to feel like they have a really strong, direct course of action. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes the cards just say to the person, you gotta make a decision. And while that is most definitely frustrating, it puts the responsibility for the questioner's future right in their hands. And that's where it belongs. And if you find yourself lost in a reading and things aren't clicking, that's okay. Say so. Not every reading is going to be one of those breakthrough readings where the person you're reading for feels like their mind has been clarified and they have a sense of direction and purpose. Now, it's beautiful when that happens, and that's why we do this. Those moments are the memorable moments, but sometimes the cards will just not click. You will be confused, the person you're reading for will be confused, and it's okay. Say that. I will sometimes tell my clients that a reading that may seem mysterious or inscrutable right now will make sense to them as time goes on. So I always recommend that people take a picture of the cards as they're laid out on the table. And very often I will have clients come back to me and they'll say something like, that made no sense at all. But now that I think about it, now that time has gone on, it makes total sense. So if you're feeling perplexed, if you're feeling like nothing is making any sense to you or the client, it's okay. Just say so. Again, you're not that all-seeing, all-knowing oracle. You become a mirror so that the person can look into you, can look into the reading, and can see themselves reflected, see the deeper parts of themselves reflected. So to wrap up this short but incredibly important module, being a tarot reader comes with enormous responsibility. This is not a parlor game. This is not just something silly and fun that you do. It certainly can be. But even the silly fun readings, as I mentioned earlier, can sometimes crack someone open, can really get to some deep and heavy emotional stuff. So in every reading you do, please strive first and foremost to do no harm. That's the Hippocratic oath that physicians take. And in this case, as a tarot reader, you are a healer. That is really the purpose. That's why we do this. And we also heal ourselves when we read for ourselves. So this is a real responsibility. So rule number 1 is do no harm. And secondly, always do your best to empower and uplift the people that you're reading for. Respect them as individuals. Put all your preconceptions, your judgment, your ego aside. Your job is to help those people get in touch with their inner wisdom and give them the tools to navigate their lives with confidence in their own power and their own abilities to change things for the better. So in conclusion, follow these simple, common sense ethical guidelines. And not only will you avoid harming someone else, you will also help yourself to grow, to learn, and become a better human being. And that is why we do this.